The diagnostic scanner beeped its familiar rhythm as I ran my palm across the access panel, the metal still warm from the morning's energy surge. I am speaking from 2350, and what I'm about to tell you about the Alcal power grid will change everything you think you know about our future. The security checkpoint had waved me through without question, they always do. After 15 years monitoring these systems, I'm practically invisible to them. The central nexus hummed with that deep, bone-vibrating frequency that tells you the high-voltage lines are carrying their full load. 67 terawatts flowing through crystalline conduits, enough power to light your entire planet for a month. I pulled up the overnight logs on my handheld, expecting the usual minor fluctuations and thermal variations. Routine grid diagnostics, nothing more. That's what this was supposed to be. But the numbers didn't match. I've been analyzing power grids since I was 23, trained by Elena Vasquez herself before she disappeared into the coalition's upper echelons. She taught me to read energy patterns like you might read facial expressions. Every spike, every dip tells a story. And this story was wrong. The failure cascade from 3 weeks ago, the one that left the eastern districts in darkness for 18 hours. The official report blamed it on solar storm interference. Clean, simple, nobody's fault. The raw data told a different story entirely. I crouched beside Conduit Bank 7, pressing my ear to the housing. The vibration should have been steady, like a massive heart beating. Instead, I heard stutters, deliberate interruptions in the flow. Someone had installed regulators, tiny devices that could choke power at precise intervals. My hands shook as I pried open the maintenance hatch, the smell of ozone and heated metal filling my nostrils. There, nestled between the primary conductors like a parasite, sat a device no bigger than your thumb. Matte black, unmarked, with fiber optic threads woven directly into our power infrastructure. I'd never seen anything like it in any official manual. This wasn't standard equipment. This was sabotage. But sabotage by whom? And why? I pulled out my portable scanner, hands trembling as I ran it over the device. The readout made my stomach drop. Manufacturing signature, Coalition Industries. Date stamp, 2 months ago. This wasn't some terrorist attack from the outer settlements. This was internal. Someone inside our own government had deliberately crippled our power grid, and they'd done it with surgical precision. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Every blackout, every system failure, over the past 6 months, they were all planned. Orchestrated. But for what purpose? The eastern districts house mostly working families, people who depend on consistent power for their livelihoods. Why would anyone want to hurt them? I photographed everything, my camera's flash reflecting off the polished conduits that snake through this facility like arteries. The security cameras above me continued their lazy sweep, unaware that I just uncovered something that could topple the coalition government. Elena's voice echoed in my memory, the grid is sacred, Jamal. It's not just power, it's trust. People flip a switch and expect light. They depend on us for that certainty. How could I tell her that someone had broken that trust? How could I tell anyone? The device felt warm in my palm as I carefully extracted it, its weight somehow heavier than physics should allow. Evidence. Proof that our energy failures weren't failures at all, but calculated attacks on our own people. I slipped it into my jacket pocket, the metal pressing against my ribs like a guilty secret. The humming of high-voltage lines suddenly sounded different, not the steady drone of reliable power, but something more sinister. A conspiracy hiding in plain sight, wrapped in the mundane routine of grid maintenance and security checkpoints that had become meaningless theater. I sealed the maintenance hatch and stood, my legs unsteady. The diagnostic scanner still beeped its innocent rhythm, displaying normal readings that I now knew were lies. Everything was lies. And somehow, I had to figure out how to expose the truth without destroying everything Elena had taught me to protect. The weight of that device in my pocket felt like it might drag me straight through the floor. I should have left the facility that night. Should have gone home, filed my standard maintenance report, and pretended that device didn't exist. Instead, I found myself 3 levels below ground in the archive vaults, where they keep the old maintenance logs, the physical ones from before everything went digital. The smell hit me first. Coal dust. Faint but unmistakable, clinging to these concrete walls like a ghost from the old energy wars. Most people your time would recognize it, that bitter, metallic scent that used to pour from smokestacks. Down here, it's trapped in the ventilation system, a reminder of what we used to burn before the alkyls gave us clean fusion. My hands were shaking as I pulled the heavy logbooks from their shelves. These weren't the sanitized digital records that management reviews. These were the real ones, handwritten entries from grid technicians, coffee stains and all. The pages felt brittle under my fingers, decades of humidity making them soft as tissue paper. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. The device in my pocket had shown me energy routing patterns, but I needed context. When did these failures start? Who authorized the maintenance windows that coincided with the blackouts? That's when I found the cabinet. It was tucked behind a support beam, painted the same industrial gray as the walls. Rust had eaten through the bottom edge, leaving orange stains on the concrete floor. The lock had corroded away years ago. Inside, rolled blueprints lined the shelves like sleeping snakes. My flashlight beam caught the edge of one drawing, and I recognized the power grid layout immediately. But this wasn't any schematic I'd seen before. Red lines traced alternate routing paths, bypass channels that could redirect power away from residential sectors without triggering the main alarm systems. I unrolled the blueprint across a nearby table, dust motes dancing in my light. The paper crackled like old skin. Someone had hand-drawn modifications to our primary distribution nodes. Modifications that would create artificial bottlenecks, force power shortages in specific neighborhoods while maintaining full capacity to government buildings and coalition headquarters. The signature in the corner made my blood freeze, E. Vasquez, Chief Grid Architect, 2347. Elena's signature. Elena's handwriting. My mentor, the woman who taught me that the grid was sacred, that people depended on us for certainty, had designed a system to betray that trust. The coal smell seemed stronger now, mixing with the metallic taste of fear in my mouth. I photographed everything with my personal scanner, the device's tiny flash casting harsh shadows across the blueprints. Each image felt like evidence in a trial that hadn't happened yet. My hands left smudges on the paper as I rolled the drawings back up, replacing them exactly as I'd found them. The maintenance logs told the rest of the story. Work orders scheduled during peak demand hours. Emergency repairs that lasted exactly long enough to create rolling blackouts in coalition-controlled districts. Technicians reassigned at the last minute, leaving critical systems undermanned. It wasn't incompetence. It was sabotage. And Elena wasn't just complicit, she was the architect. I closed the cabinet and backed away, the rusty metal groaning as it settled. The coal scent seemed to follow me as I climbed back toward the surface levels, that device still pressing against my ribs like a second heartbeat. Every step echoed in the concrete stairwell, each sound a reminder that I was alone with this knowledge. You have to understand, Elena saved my career. When I was just another junior technician making mistakes, she saw potential. She taught me to read the grid like a living thing, to feel the pulse of power flowing through the city. She made me believe we were guardians of something essential. Now I knew she'd been lying the entire time. The elevator ride to the surface felt endless. My reflection stared back from the polished doors, a man carrying secrets that could reshape our world. The device in my pocket had shown me the technical proof, but those blueprints revealed the human element. This wasn't some automated system glitch or foreign interference. This was betrayal from within. And I was the only one who knew. My hands were shaking as I spread those stolen blueprints across my apartment floor at 0300 hours. The silence was so complete I could hear my neighbor's air recycler cycling 3 units away. But I had to see this properly, away from the underground archives where hidden cameras tracked every movement with their silent whir. The coalition insignia was stamped on every page, that familiar three-circle symbol that should have meant protection, stability, order. Instead, it marked documents that detailed our deliberate destruction. I ran my finger along the power distribution maps, tracing the red lines that marked failure points. They weren't random. They formed a perfect pattern around coalition residential blocks. You need to understand how our grid works. Think of it like the circulatory system in your body. Power flows through main arteries, then branches into smaller vessels that feed every building, every home. These blueprints showed exactly where to pinch those vessels closed. Not enough to kill the patient, but enough to cause pain. Enough to make people desperate. The tension-filled silence stretched as I cross-referenced the blueprint dates with my own maintenance records. My throat felt dry as parchment. Every accidental failure I'd investigated over the past 6 months was right there, planned to the hour. The West Side blackout that left families without heating for 3 days. The industrial district power surge that destroyed a coalition food processing plant. Even the hospital backup system malfunction that nearly killed 12 patients. All deliberate. All Elena's design. I touched the paper and felt the slight texture of official coalition printing, that expensive synthetic material they use for classified documents. The irony burned in my chest. They'd use their own resources to plan attacks against themselves. But why? The answer was in the final blueprint, labeled Phase 3 Implementation. It showed a massive power redistribution network, one that would channel energy away from coalition territories and directly into alkyl districts. The technical specifications made my blood freeze. This wasn't just about causing blackouts. This was about permanent transfer of power infrastructure. Elena and her conspirators weren't just sabotaging the coalition's energy supply. They were stealing it. Every failure weakened coalition control while strengthening alkyl positions. Every blackout made coalition citizens more dependent on alkyl-controlled backup systems. It was a slow-motion coup disguised as technical incompetence. I could smell the metallic tang of fear in my own sweat as I realized the scope of this betrayal. The woman who taught me to protect our city's lifeline had been systematically destroying it. And she'd used me, used my maintenance reports, my access codes, my trust, to help her do it. The silent whir of my own apartment's surveillance system suddenly seemed deafening. How long before they realized what I'd taken? How long before Elena discovered her protégé had uncovered her treachery? I gathered the blueprints with trembling fingers, knowing I held evidence that could expose a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of coalition leadership. But I also knew that possessing this knowledge had just made me the most dangerous person in the city. The device in my pocket pulsed once, as if responding to my elevated heart rate. Whatever it was, wherever it came from, it had led me to this moment. Now I had to decide what to do with the truth it had revealed. Elena's final lesson was the cruelest one: sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who betray us deepest. My pulse echoed in my ears like hammer strikes as I sat in the cool, recycled air of my concealed office, a maintenance closet I'd converted 3 levels below the main grid station. The sawed metal edge of the blueprint tube had left a thin cut on my palm, and I pressed it against my forehead, trying to think through the blood rushing in my head. 3 hours. That's how long I'd been staring at these stolen documents, and the weight of what I knew was crushing me. Elena's conspiracy wasn't just about power grids, it was about reshaping civilization itself. The alkyls weren't the bumbling energy partners everyone believed them to be. They were orchestrating the slow strangulation of coalition infrastructure, preparing to emerge as humanity's saviors when our systems finally collapsed. The device in my pocket had gone silent since leading me to Elena's hidden files, but I could feel its presence like a cold stone against my ribs. Whatever intelligence had sent it back through time had known this moment would come. Had known I would have to choose. I traced the blueprint edges with my bleeding finger, leaving dark smears on the technical drawings that proved Elena's guilt. My mentor's voice echoed in my memory: "Promise me, Jamal. Promise you'll protect the grid no matter what." But she'd been lying even then, hadn't she? teaching me to guard something she was already planning to destroy. The recycled air tasted metallic now, or maybe that was just my fear. Every shadow in this cramped space seemed to hide surveillance equipment. Every distant footstep in the corridors above made me flinch. Elena would discover the missing blueprints soon. Her security protocols were too thorough for this theft to go unnoticed long. My hands shook as I activated my personal communicator. 2 options glowed on the screen: the Coalition Authorities Emergency Reporting Channel, or Elena's direct line. Report the conspiracy and become a target, or return the blueprints and pretend ignorance. My pulse hammered against my temples as I realized the cruel mathematics of survival. If I exposed Elena's plot, the Alkals would hunt me down within days. Their infiltration ran too deep, their resources too vast. I'd seen what happened to whistleblowers who threatened powerful interests. They simply vanished, their apartments found empty, their records mysteriously corrupted. But if I stayed silent, millions would suffer as the Coalition's infrastructure crumbled according to Elena's timeline. The sawed metal edge bit into my palm again as I gripped the tube tighter. That sharp pain was real, immediate, unlike the abstract suffering of future victims I'd never meet. My survival instincts screamed at me to choose safety, to bury this knowledge and live. But the device pulsed once more, a gentle warmth against my ribs, and I understood. Someone in the future had risked everything to send me this warning. Someone who'd lived through the consequences of this conspiracy and found them unbearable enough to attempt the impossible, reaching backward through time itself. I thought of my younger sister in the residential sector, dependent on the grid I maintained. I thought of the children in the education centers, the elderly in care facilities, all the innocent people who would pay the price for Elena's ambition. My pulse still thundered in my ears, but my hands had stopped shaking. The cool air carried the distant hum of the main generators, the heartbeat of our civilization. Elena had taught me to hear that rhythm, to protect it. She'd also taught me that sometimes protection required sacrifice. I selected the Coalition Authorities Emergency Channel and began uploading the stolen blueprints. My fingerprint authorization would create an unbreakable trail back to me, but that was the point. Someone had to stand witness. Someone had to choose truth over survival. As the files transmitted, I whispered a promise to the device that had brought me here: I won't let them win. The conspiracy would be exposed. Elena's betrayal would be revealed. And whatever happened to me afterward, at least the future would know that someone had tried to prevent this catastrophe. The upload completed with a soft chime that sounded like a death knell in the recycled air of my hiding place.